Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. Now pray for the soul of this explorer. It's time for 31 days of horror. Still got a stain on that jacket, yeah? Hi there, Terence McGuana here, and today we're going to talk about 1982's Q, the Winged Serpent. This film takes place in New York City, where an Aztec cult have managed to pray back into existence a giant flying monster by the name of Quetzalcoatl, who has a penchant of eating window washers and sunbathers off of rooftops, leaving the New York Police Department scratching their heads as to who has committed these heinous crimes. In another part of the city, we're introduced to Jimmy Quinn, a two-bit thief who, whilst hiding out in the Chrysler building, accidentally discovers the nesting place of this creature and then decides to hold the whole city to ransom for his own profit and his own fame. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm absolutely obsessed with Larry Cohen. Larry Cohen was one of the great B-movie directors, screenwriters. He used to work in 1950s, 60s television, churning out script after script, doing shows like Branded and The Invaders and things like that, and then moved on to being a film director with films like Bone, Black Caesar, It's Alive, The Stuff, The Private Files of J. Edgar Hoover, Ambulance, and this one, Q the Winged Serpent, which I think is his absolute best. What I think separates this from other monster movies is the characters. The characters are three-dimensional, likeable, enjoyable, witty characters. I just recently watched Godzilla vs. Kong, or is it Kong vs. Godzilla, and honestly I couldn't tell you anything that happened in that film. All I remember was just people just staring into the sky going, oh look there, they're kicking each other's ass. It was just so empty. You know, the Godzilla films and things like that have never really appealed to me in the sense that the characters are not important. The characters are not important. It's the big guy in the rubber suit fighting the other guy in the rubber suit. That's what I'm here to watch. It always quite saddens me because I like having interesting characters on screen. Sorry. You know, you watch Godzilla vs. Kong, couldn't tell you one character in it that was likeable or enjoyable or interesting in any way. They're just so two-dimensional. Whereas in Q the Winged Serpent, this is the one, this is the movie where you actually enjoy the company of the characters more than the monster scenes. The stop motion animation in this is quite terrible. You know, the actual Quetzalcoatl moments look quite awful. They look like Wallace and Gromit, but really poor Wallace and Gromit. You know, which is a shame, but at the same time, I could let that slide. I can always forever forgive really lame special effects. Honestly, even if they just held up a sign and said, look, here's a picture of a dinosaur, and the rest of it was great. The acting was great, the characters were interesting, the story was great, and they just went, okay, we can't afford to have T-Rex, so here's just a picture of him. I would forgive that. I would honestly forgive shoddy special effects over anything else. You know, I'm not one of these people that go, oh yeah, it looks really fake. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've watched so many films with really terrible CGI. I really don't like CGI for some reason. CGI just it just always looks fake no matter what they do. You know, it might be like, oh, you know, they've never done this before, never done that before, but it looks like a PlayStation game. I remember when I went to see Matrix Reloaded, and they had that big massive fight scene with Neo and all the agents, and it looked terrible at the time. And see, watching it now, oh my goodness, watching that scene now, it just makes you want to be sick. Honestly, it makes you want to vomit. But anyway, back to Q the Winged Serpent. Q the Winged Serpent is a 5-star film, absolutely. And the best part about it, I would say, is Michael Moriarty as Jimmy Quinn. This guy is such a scuzzy loser, but for some reason he becomes likeable. You actually want to see this guy do well because he is actually quite believable and funny and in an interesting way. He's one of these guys that's always been a loser, and he's never had this chance to be successful, and he gets this opportunity where he's discovered the hiding place of this giant ancient creature, and he's going to use it. He's going to try and hold the city to ransom in this absolutely mind-blowing scene that he has with the New York Police Department. It's such a funny scene. Every scene that Michael Moriarty appears in this is absolutely perfect. He is just so engaging. David Carradine plays this sort of cop hero. He's quite solid. He's not much of a three-dimensional character, to be honest. Not given a lot to do. He's just there to sort of do the exposition, to investigate the connection between this ancient cult and this flying monster, to kind of explain why we have this flying reptile flying through New York, killing people left, right and centre. That's really what he's there. He's there to be the sort of chiselled action hero. And you've got Richard Roundtree, which I thought he was quite interesting in it, because I've always loved Richard Roundtree as Shaft, especially Shaft in Africa. Shaft in Africa is an excellent film. I can't wait to sit down and talk about Shaft in Africa with you, but not now because it's 31 Days of Horror. But Richard Roundtree is quite interesting because you always see the sort of pig-faced white cop who's there to, sort of push around the two-bit thief, and he's the opposite of that. Obviously, with him being a man of colour, he is the kind of bully cop. It's kind of interesting to see the bully cop not be a white guy for a change, and you can see that he's actually quite enjoying himself as well. And it's just such a really good film. There's so many terrific lines. Larry Cohen was always really good at hitting out with some perfect lines. His dialogue was always really crisp. You just felt like these were real people talking to each other. And like, there's such a great line. There's so many great lines. Guns don't come with nerves. You have to use your own. Stuff like that. There's some real peaches in here, and I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, I absolutely adore this film, and I love the way that it's got. We have this flying monster in New York, but the people in it still have that kind of laid back attitude. They're never gonna believe that there's a flying ancient Aztec reptile flying through New York. So even the police department are like, right, okay, this is never going to reach outside of this room, right? They're just that way. They're never going to accept the reality that there's a flying monster in it, and I think that's kind of true. I think if there were flying monsters in modern society, we would try and keep a lid on it as best we could. We just wouldn't accept that this was ever going to happen. I used to collect videotapes, and I know I've pure chomped everybody's ear off about how I used to collect videotapes and I was mad for videotapes, but this one I just couldn't part with. Cue the Winged Serpent, right? This is the original pre-certificate. Cue the Winged Serpent. When I say pre-certificate, when they had the video nasty scare in the early days, videotape didn't have a certificate like a PG-13 or anything like that, right? So they didn't have like a certificate on them. So because of the video nasty scare, the video companies introduced the certificates, right? So this one doesn't have it, and it's from this Video Movies from Hokushin, like pure ancient company that's long gone out of business. And it's just absolutely magnificent. I absolutely adore this movie, and it looks great on videotape as well. Seeing it in a kind of scratchier, less definition actually helps with some of the terrible effects. I could honestly strip the paint off a battleship talking about Cue the Winged Serpent. It is one of my all-time favourite B movies, and I've said that probably a dozen times in this video. But if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give us a thumbs down. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscription button. If you don't want to subscribe to the channel, don't do anything. And tune in tomorrow for another horror film, and we'll talk about it. I will talk about it and burn your ear off. And have a nice evening. Peace, love, rock and roll. Terence McGuana. Ciao, ciao, ciao.